Yo! Hegassen here, and today we are dealing with the third film in the MCU and the first sequel in the MCU, Iron Man 2, which is, there he is, that guy, straight back there again, Tony Stark. So Iron Man 2, a little bit of a divisive film in the MCU. Some people love it, some people hate it, a lot of people are kind of in the middle. Whereabouts do I fit in? Let's find out. So, Iron Man 2. Is it better than the first Iron Man? No. Is it the worst MCU film of all time? No. Is it the worst Iron Man film? No. What is it then? Is it a good film? Is it in the middle? I'll get to that a little bit later on. But first of all, let's talk about the plot of Iron Man 2. The basic gist of the plot, if you break it all down, is the fact that obviously at the end of Iron Man, Tony Stark announced himself as Iron Man, and all of the technology that comes with it has been revealed to the world. And obviously, there's a lot of people out there that want a little bit of that technology, namely the US military and government, as well as a lot of the other big tech companies. So the main kind of through line of the film is that there's a lot of people trying to get hold of this technology, but Tony Stark isn't giving it up. He wants it for himself. Obviously, he has good reasons for that, because he doesn't want that technology getting out there in the world and helping the evil that he's trying to fight. But that's not how the government and all the other tech companies see it. They see it as him being evil by monopolizing that. First of all, let's talk about the returning characters from the original Iron Man film. Obviously, we have Pepper's back, who once again is great. Great little dynamic there with her and Tony. It's all still in place. And of course, obviously, Tony's back and he's still as good as ever. Robert Downey Jr. playing Tony Stark, still one of the best characters in the MCU. Happy's back, and he's got a lot more to do in this film. And it's great to see, because he's a great character. And this is kind of the film where we actually start seeing him more. And he's dynamic with Tony, and especially he's dynamic with Pepper as well. He's like that buffering zone where if she's getting too much of Tony, she can just fall back on him, and he's like a reliable companion to her. Also returning, we see Agent Coulson, but not as much Agent Coulson as we did in Iron Man 1. He's still very much kind of popping in and out, and we get a lot more from his cameo in the last film of Nick Fury. Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury, and it's great to see him. This is really the film where you start to feel a little bit more of the fact that this is a wider universe, with now Nick Fury stepping in and bringing in elements of what will later happen to be, the Avengers and all of the SHIELD stuff and stuff related to that. You also get slight little hints of the other upcoming two films. Obviously, Coulson has to go to New Mexico, which we see in the end credit scene is Thor, and we see Captain America's shield, or like a prototype of his shield in this film, which Tony uses to prop up that like accelerator thing that he's making. And so all of the characters are back, and they're good, including Rhodey, who's back, and he's got a new haircut, new face, new body, new everything, because he's now played by Don Cheadle, and he's great in the role. We didn't really get to see too much of Iron Man in the last film. In this film, he's much more in it, much more centered. We get to see a lot more of him and Tony and the dynamic between them. That's really good. Obviously, that we see this relationship grow in the rest of the films, and in this film, he finally becomes War Machine as well. But yeah, we get to see a lot more of his character, and that's really good. I really like the dynamic between him and Tony. You can tell that they're good friends, but they're kind of their ideologies and stuff are all completely different. Tony's very much I do what I want, I'm my own boss kind of guy, whereas War Machine Rhodey is much more of a, military man. He gets these orders, even if he wants to do something himself, he'll still follow his orders, follow the people that are leading him, which is, his character gets in some conflicts because of that, because at the beginning we've got this courtroom scene, and he has to testify against Tony, because he has to testify about the stuff that he saw in Iron Man with the suit and stuff. And, you can see that he doesn't want to hurt his friend, but he's been ordered, so he has to read out what he's written. It's all out of context, and he's trying to point that up, say that if I read this line, it's out of context, right? And it's going to make it seem much worse than it actually is, what I've actually put here, if you don't have all the other stuff. But he gets forced to do it, and he still does it anyway, because, he's a guy who follows orders. You can see that playing on his mind throughout several points in the film, and I really like that. Tony, in this film, as we see right from the beginning of the film, he's let Iron Man and being a superhero and stuff go to his head a little bit. You know, he starts off, he's in his expo, the Stark Expo. He drops down from a ship. It's all big, it's all flashy. He's all I'm Iron Man. You know, he's given a speech at the expo and he's talking about the future. And he's like, it's not about me. You know, it's not about you. And then he's like, welcome to the Stark Expo. He's even when he's trying to be subtle and stuff, he's still very much in your face. You know, he's like a rock star in this film. You know, he's got the whole world, you know, is at his feet and he's loving every moment of it. But we also find out that some of this flamboyance and everything, some of this showmanship, a lot of it is actually cover. He's covering the fact that he's dying, and he's dying because of the thing in his chest. He had the metal going into his chest and the arc reactor to stop it. That was saving his life, but now it's slowly killing him. He doesn't really, you know, he's not going to be upfront about it and stuff. He's hidden it from everyone, and or at least I see it as he's hiding that by just being, you know, over the top and exuberant. And you get that scene at the party where he's just drunk and he's in his Iron Man suit, and this is where that plot of people saying that why should Tony Stark have all of this technology? Can we trust him? And in him being all flamboyant and stuff like this and being big and brass and in your face with the Iron Man suit, people unfortunately see him in a negative light of, look, this guy, he's wearing an Iron Man suit to a party, he's firing watermelons out of the sky with his rockets, you know, we can't trust him. And that's where Rhodey unfortunately turns against him for a little bit. We get a nice little clash actually of War Machine nicking one of Tony's suits and Tony having a little fight. And okay, it's another Iron Man versus Iron Man fight, but it's actually a little bit better than the one that we got at the end of the first film, and I really enjoyed that. And this is also where we get some of the other newer characters coming into it as well. So the first two new characters, or first two major characters that we get, are the two new villains. The first one is Ivan, aka Whiplash, who's like the poster villain of the film. The guy, he's got two big whips, electric whips, and his whole thing at the beginning is that his dad worked with Howard Stark to build the arc reactor. Then he got pushed out of the project and stuff, and was just basically kind of left to die in Russia and stuff. So his original thing is to get revenge on Tony, but not revenge in like the straight up I'm just going to kill you, but more to bring him down to like show the world that, you know, Tony and his technology isn't as foolproof, isn't as the one that we should trust with it all. So he is a big part in that, tearing down that kind of I am Iron Man, the Iron Man suits are mine thing. So, and that's his plan, to kind of really get under Tony's skin and drag everything away from him. And he does that at the beginning of the film in this Monte Carlo F1 scene. Tony gets in a F1 car, or doesn't quite look like an F1 car, I don't think, but an F1 car at Monte Carlo, and and he comes out onto the thing, and it's a great little action scene. He like whips up all of the cars, and you get to see Tony fighting out of the suit. Then Happy comes in with a briefcase, and Tony puts his hands in the briefcase, and a suit comes out of it. It's completely unrealistic. Every time I see it, I'm like, how is that even possible? Like the suit's like folding around him and everything, you know. But it's good fun, and that's a really good action scene. And then he gets at the end of that, Ivan gets captured, and we get introduced. Even though we saw him later on, this is the first time we introduce him really as a villain. We see the other villain of the piece, that is Justin Hammer, who's like another businessman. He's kind of like Tony Stark. He's very, he's like witty and he's in your face and stuff like that. But he's not quite like Tony Stark in that everything he does, everything he says, all these jokes, they all just slightly fall a little bit flat. He can never quite get to Tony's like level. So like his technology is not as good. The jokes that he tell aren't as funny, So, and he has this great little rivalry with Tony, but to Tony, this guy's nothing. And him and Ivan have this great little back and forth. I love their interactions. We first see them together in this aircraft hangar, and it's like such big clash of worlds. Like Ivan's like this like down and dirty kind of guy, like make his suits in like a damp garage, and then you've got Justin Hammer, who's rich and extravagant, and he's got like all caviar and champagne, and his waiter comes over with like the silver tray, and he's all shaking, puts the thing in front of Ivan. The entire dynamic is that Justin Hammer thinks that he's in control, but actually Ivan's in control all along. I really like them too. They're a great little double act in the film. And then another character we also get is Black Widow. Natasha Romanoff is in this film, her first film. At first, we don't know it's her. She's undercover as this secretary. Tony, when you first meet her, Tony's boxing with Happy, and he gets her in the ring. She gets in the ring all like really sexily and stuff, and just knocks Hogan out, gets him on the floor, and that's when you're first like, this girl isn't quite what she seems. I think maybe Tony susses it out a little bit, but to everybody else, it's just like, oh wow, she must be a really good practice at martial arts or something like that. But we all then learn that she is Scarlet Witch, and damn it, every single time I make this mistake and notice in editing. Whenever I say Scarlet Witch, what I mean is Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow, and also while we're on the subject, every time I say Monte Carlo, I mean Monaco. I'm sorry about that, it's a bad habit. God, I'm shit at this. Don't forget to subscribe. And, she has some great scenes in this as well. At the end, she has a great scene where she's infiltrating a base, and she takes out all the guards. Happy's there as well, and Happy's fighting one guy, and you find out that he's, in the time it's taken him to beat one guy, she's beaten everybody else, and it's a good introduction to her character. And you know, this is some of the things where this, again, like with Nick Fury, this is hinting towards the Avengers, this is hinting towards the bigger picture and the MCU, and you know, having multiple heroes in one film, and that's really good and refreshing to see. So overall, what are my overall thoughts of the film? Like I've been saying, characters I think are really good. They're really strong. I really like all of the little dynamics that you get between them. I like Justin Hammer and Tony's banter. I like Justin Hammer and Ivan's banter. I like Pepper and Tony. I like War Machine and Tony. All of them work really well. Tony himself goes through a nice little arc of, by the end of the film, learning that he doesn't have to be Iron Man all on his own. You know, he can rely on others. At the end of the film, he gets now his sidekick, War Machine. He says, I don't need a sidekick in the film. By the end of the film, he has a sidekick, which is great. Obviously, sets up stuff in the future. And at the end of the film, he finally gets with Pepper Potts as well. There's a great little scene there where they're on the roof, and War Machine's been there all along. He sees them kiss, and he's like, delivers a great line. Get a roof. Love that line. The villains, you know, they're not great. They're not amazing. But you know, but their characters are interesting and stuff. But the end, the final conclusion of it isn't all that good. Justin Hammer just gets arrested by the police, and Ivan, he has a final fight and just goes down really easy and then blows himself up. The final fight overall is a little bit lacking. It's not that good. There's a lot of little bits of excitement in there, but unfortunately, I think the Monte Carlo scene was better. So when it gets to this one, it falls a little bit flat. But it's in this moment where you get to see War Machine and Tony Stark work together. So it has its pluses, but it's not great. It's a step up from the end of Iron Man 1, but again, compared to films later on in the series, the final isn't all that good. Also, Whiplash's motives at the end, they just kind of get a little bit out of whack. It's kind of the same thing with the last two films, where the villain just towards the end just becomes a little bit mad and like a short-sighted and focused on one thing. And in this case, he seems to have turned from trying to drag Tony Stark down to just, I'm just going to get revenge. He kind of undoes everything that he did, because his first action that he did made the world see that Tony Stark and his technology is probably not best kept in Tony Stark's hands, and that the military and stuff should get involved in that technology. And then his final action of using the military's technology to fight Tony Stark and hurt loads of civilians actually makes it look like, oh no, actually the military shouldn't have this technology. We should probably just trust it to Tony Stark. So he kind of undoes everything that he did. I guess he never expected for any of this to happen, so it was just short-sighted on revenge. That's a little bit weird. That kind of takes a little bit away from it overall towards the end of the film. But how would I rank it overall? I'll be honest, like I said, was teasing about at the beginning, I do quite like this film. It is a little bit of a guilty pleasure. Sure, it hasn't got the best ending. Sure, it hasn't got it doesn't wrap up in the best way. You know, it kind of just ends, and I don't feel like it really has the best conclusion. But everything else I really like. The characters I like, the humor I really like. There's some great little scenes here and there. Again, these Iron Man films for me, they aren't just about the action. They're about the characters for me and the way they all interact. And I think this film does it really well. So for me, I think I'm going to have to give Iron Man 2. It's going to have to be a purple tier because I can go back and rewatch this. I've gone back and rewatched it a few times, and every time I get a little bit more appreciation for it. And I also notice a few more of the flaws with every time, but every time I go back to it, I still enjoy it. You know, not to say that it being a purple tier means that it's a great film. You know, if I had to get into specifics of the tiering, I would say it's a very low purple tier. It's like there are better purple loot available. There's probably some blue loot that's equal worth to it, but still, so it's like a low purple, high blue, just kind of on the cusp of it, but slightly edging more into the purple tier for me. Like I say, there's just a lot of little scenes and stuff that I really like throughout the film. I like the courtroom scene at the beginning. I like it when you first see Ivan and Hammer together for their dinner after he's got out of the jail cell. I like that, like I said, that Monte Carlo scene, the F1 stuff. I liked the scene where Hammer was showing off all of the weapons that his company has to Rhodey War Machine, and then at the end, War Machine's just like, yeah, I'll take them all. So there's lots of little scenes I like going back to, and I like rewatching. Also the Samuel Jackson scene where Nick Fury first properly talks to Iron Man at the donut shop. It's a nice, good scene where you first find out that Black Widow is Black Widow. Yeah. Also, two other little things that I just want to bring up. Just they don't really relate to anything. Just things that I've noticed in the film. When Tony fixes the thing in his chest and he invents, well, he claims to invent a new element, but it's an element that's already existed, and he's just refound it again. And this element is the thing that can fix his arc reactor and stop it from killing him. He makes it by creating this great big collider thing, and he just makes it so quickly. Like gets the segments to make it out of a crate that you think, oh, maybe he's ordered them in specially to make this. But then Coulson comes down the stairs and is like, oh, I hear you left the building. And he left the building to go see Pepper, where he saw a map of the expo location, and that made him notice that hidden within it, his dad had hidden the structures of this element. So obviously hardly any time has passed, so he must have just had these pipes like in storage for Coulson to be like, oh, I heard you left the perimeter. Or is he only just finding that out now? It can't have been a big gap. It must have only been like a few hours. So yeah, I'm assuming he just had this stuff in storage again. It's another one of those weird things where a character makes something in a film and you're not quite sure how much time has passed. The other thing that I noticed when watching this film is Tony Stark, the man who can make a briefcase turn into an Iron Man suit, still hasn't upgraded his little arm robots. You know, they're still rubbish and knocking over drinks machines and not really doing anything. And it's like, come on, you're making all these advanced technologies, upgrade them too. I guess he has a secret soft spot for them, but it's just weird that he has that old technology still rolling around when he can probably make one that would come out of a watch if he needed it. You know, it's just a bit strange. So there you go. There's my thoughts on Iron Man 2. What do you think of Iron Man 2? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you in the middle? What did you think of my thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to keep doing all of these MCU reviews. Next up, as we saw at the end credits, we go to New Mexico and we go to Thor. So I'll see you then. I've been Hegassen, and I'll talk to you later. Iron Man! Psh!